Today I'm taking you inside a new horror release called Primate, directed by Johannes Roberts, the same filmmaker behind 47 Meters Down, The Strangers Pray at Night, and Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. If you're familiar with his work, you already know he thrives on tight location, panic-driven survival, and characters being haunted with nowhere to escape. Quick heads up before we continue, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and want to go in blind, now's your chance to pause this video. Now, a lot of people will automatically compare this movie to Cujo, and honestly, that comparison makes sense. But for me, Primate also feels heavily inspired by films like Link and Monkey Shines, tapping into that unsettling animal-turned-threat horror subgenre. The film follows Lucy, whose tropical island homecoming quickly turns into a nightmare. What should have been a reunion with her family becomes a fight for survival when their highly intelligent pet, chimpanzee Ben, becomes rabid. With her father away, no authorities coming, and no easy way off the island, paradise turned into prison, Lucy and her friends are forced to survive against a creature they once trusted, and that emotional betrayal is really where the horror hits. The movie opens with a brutal and unsettling scene. A veterinarian enters an outdoor animal enclosed and is immediately attacked by Ben, who violently rips off his face. It's shocking, graphic, and set the tone pretty fast. Then the film rewinds 36 hours earlier, showing Lucy arriving on the island to visit her father and sister, and this is where we introduce Ben. Not as a monster, but as a deeply intelligent animal. Ben was taught to communicate using a tablet with custom soundboard software by Lucy's late mother. This detail is important because it humanized Ben and makes what happens later even more disturbing. Now, early on, the film presents the on-screen message that really stood out to me. The first case of hydrophobia was recorded in 2300 BC. Infected animals literally go mad at the sight of water. It felt untreated within 48 hours. It is incurable today. Hydrophobia is better known by the Latin word for madness, which is rabies. That's a strong and effective way to ground the story in reality. Ben is bitten by a mongoose, which infects him with rabies. As the illness progresses, we start to see the classic symptoms: agitation, aggression, confusion, and most importantly, hydrophobia, which explains why Ben becomes enraged at the sight of water. Now, historically, rabies has often been referred to hydrophobia because infected animals and even humans experience painful throat spasms that make swallowing water terrifying, and the movie used that detail in a smart way, which I like, especially later when the characters realize water might be their only protection. I really appreciate how the film shows what happens when an infected animal is left untreated. Ben essentially becomes a ticking time bomb. One thing I genuinely liked was the father and daughter relationship between Lucy and her dad, but also the relationship between Lucy and her sister. It gives the movie emotional balance. Without it, this could have easily turned into a mindless survival horror, but instead it grounds the chaos. The horror doesn't just come from the attacks, it comes from the loss, guilt, and the realization that something you love is now trying to kill you. While Primate is not officially based on a true story, it's hard not to see the parallels to a real-life incident that happened in the US in 2009. A chimpanzee named Travis brutally attacked a person named Carla Nash, a friend of his owner, leaving her permanently disfigured and blind. The attack shocked the world and sparked conversations about keeping wild animals as pets. The film never directly referenced this event, but it wouldn't be a stretch to assume stories like the influence the concept. It adds an extra layer of unease because situations like this have actually happened. Johannes Roberts has openly said he's a massive fan of Stephen King, especially Cujo, which I kind of figured. He even mentioned that the inspiration for Primate came from watching his mother's dog circling a swimming pool. That direct translates into the movie where Lucy and her friends take refuge in a pool, knowing Ben can't swim and that his hydrophobia will keep him away from the water. Roberts explained that while audience often feel sympathy for dogs in horror, chimpanzees feel different. They're unpredictable, powerful, and unsettling in a way that taps into a primal fear. And honestly, that comes through on screen. I also really like the cinematography, especially the heavy use of red lighting and the fluorescent blues, which fit the tropical setting while still making it feel cold and threatened. The colors contrast paradise and danger beautifully, making the island feel more claustrophobic as the movie goes on. Now, here's where I'm a little mixed in this movie. Johannes Roberts is great at creating chase sequences and intense endings, and Primate delivers on that front. However, there are some horror cliches sprinkled throughout that slightly pull me out of the experience. Nothing major, just moments where you can predict what's coming. Not to mention when the dad received a text message from the lab that said that the results came back, which was that the mongoose has rabies, and the dad said we don't have rabies in Hawaii. That said, if you're into gruesome kills, survival horror, and contained thrillers, this movie will probably work for you. It is not a masterpiece. It is not perfect, but it's not bad either because the movie came off pretty strong in the beginning, kind of slowed down in the middle, but towards the end, it gave you that final touch and that final gruesome kill, which I enjoy. Now, I will rate this movie a 6.5 out of a 10. Now let me know in the comments, did you watch Primate? Was it too slow for you, or did the tone and atmosphere work? And how do you feel about animal-based horror compared to slashers or supernatural films? If you enjoyed this review, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, see you later.